All right, here we go. Let's try this again. I'm not sure. I went ahead and reset my router. I guess I should have did that beforehand because, I'm on gigabit internet at my house, and oh wait, I don't even think that this is the right. All right, here we go. All right. Hopefully we're good now, but definitely went ahead and reset my router. Internet was running a little slow beforehand. I don't know why I didn't think to do that. But welcome back to the Tiermaker Week 14. Butter Biscuit, what's up, man? I'm on AT&T Uverse gigabit speed. It's supposed to be 1,000 megabits per second. I don't know if they're doing some kind of upgrades or something like that right now that might be causing for issues, but I don't know. It's weird, but I think we're good now. I think we're back in the positive. And just to go over, let's see here. Let me see that. Where is that at? Super chat here that Butterbiscuit 92 had added. Butterbiscuit, a month plus long member of the channel, $5. He says, glad my boys lost. Hopefully the pressure is gone and the boys can stop drilling balls and get the offense to gel. But appreciate that super chat there, Butterbiscuit. Now we can get back into this. Like I said, really sorry about that interruption there. But we have the Rams we have the New England Patriots visiting the Rams. And from what I can tell, looking at these two games, it's hard to really pick who is going to be what's the proper outcome to choose here. Because these are two teams that one team has found its stride. Another team is kind of winning ugly, I guess you could say, about the Patriots. Cam Newton is not really, providing the kind of spark that I think they would have hoped he would have provided when he was signed to the team. But, if I had to pick one, I'd pick the Rams just because they have the threat of having some serious offensive firepower. Not the same with the Patriots. It's really just it's a literal team game because they don't really have many pieces on their offensive side that are going to provide a real threat when it comes to having to get into a shootout. But I'm sure there's some people in the chat who will find that a little bit disrespectful of the Patriots, but I don't care because the Patriots are cheaters. But looking here at the tier, I think that we still keep the Patriots. I feel like the Patriots maybe could move up to Party Crasher. I think that's fine. We can move them up to Party Crasher. They got a win last week. And the Rams, I still feel like the Rams sit in good for a cameo. They are leading the division right now, but it's just too much of a streaky team. This is a team that's streaky. Their quarterback is streaky at best. And I just feel like it would be much more, I feel like it'd be more proper to just keep them in the good for a cameo category just because looking at the division, it's pretty close in the division. It's going to come down to the last few weeks of the season. They got to play the Seahawks again. They just got that big win over the Cardinals. So they're in control in the division, but right now in that NFC West division, I don't really see that as really that's not a big statement right now because all of the teams in that division are kind of fluttering around. No real clear-cut dominant team, and that's because of our Seahawks. But we'll talk about that later. Next game up, we've got Houston and Chicago. Chicago, obviously, they've got some issues. They're struggling ever since they lost Nick Foles to injury. and they had to go back to Trubisky, and then they realized that Trubisky ain't it, of course, and now it's really just when did they hit the bottom? Is there a bottom for these Bears? I don't know that there is. I would say that they are one loss away from actually sliding a little bit, in my eyes, into the basement dwellers category. But they don't have the same defense that they had. It's not the dominant defense that we normally associate with the Bears, and I don't think that anybody can really expect that was something that was going to last forever. This is a team that does well in getting defensive pieces on the board, but they have yet to figure out their quarterback situation. I would argue since what's his name? Oh my gosh, why am I blanking on their quarterback? Their old quarterback. Help me out there in the chat. Give me the name of the Bears quarterback back when they had Brandon Marshall. Why am I blanking on this guy? This is easy. I'm blanking. Anyways, it's been years since the Bears had a good quarterback. And again, the quarterback position, Jay Cutler. There you go. Why did I blank on Jay Cutler? But Jay Cutler is, this guy was the last, I would argue, good quarterback that they've had in Chicago. They just have not been able to seal that position up. And look, it goes to show how hard it is to actually land a good quarterback. The Jaguars are a perfect example of this as well. The Jaguars have not been able to land a good quarterback. And I'm seriously saying they have not had a good quarterback in Jacksonville since David Garrard. David Garrard was the last good quarterback the Jaguars have had. And we're talking about 2011, 2012. So it's been a solid 8 years for Jacksonville. And it's been about the same length of time for the Bears. They just haven't been able to get a good quarterback on their roster. Trubisky was a bum. Nick Foles isn't going to do it unless he's coming off the bench. You had Rex Grossman, who was an anomaly of just bad decision making, and even having him on their roster. Mitchell Trubisky, a guy who a lot of analysts and a lot of experts warned the Bears that that's probably not the move you want to make, and the Bears went ahead and made it anyways because they just know more than everybody else, and we've seen how that's played out. The Bears are hanging on for dear fucking life. Now, the Houston Texans, on the other hand, are trying to find some semblance of a silver lining to their season. It has been an utter disaster from the outset. We all know what kind of set the wheels in motion for the Texans. It was the DeAndre Hopkins trade. We all know that. Once that trade was made, it felt like to many that their fate was sealed. Now, they're coming off of a gut-wrenching loss to the Indianapolis Colts. And, at this point, it's really just about guys getting some good film out there on the team, guys kind of proving that they can be a part of the core nucleus of this team moving forward, because there's going to be big changes. Obviously, Bill O'Brien, he's out the door. They're going to be looking for a new head coach. They're going to be looking for a new general manager. Hopefully this team doesn't decide that they're going to keep a general manager as their head coach, so that they can get put in the same position that they were put in with Bill O'Brien. So the Texans are getting ready to take on a lot of change. Now they have their quarterback in place. They have a couple of pieces on the offensive side that they can use, but through and through, they're going to need to do some major overhauling in order to kind of, bring themselves back from this big breakdown that they've had with the catastrophe that they had been set up for with that trade made in the offseason. I'm going to look at this and, if I'm being honest, I'm going to say that both these teams stay where they are. I think that Houston is they're playing some better ball, and they've gotten a win in the past few weeks. So I'm going to say that I'm going to keep them where they are. The Bears are in the same position they're in. They're not going to move up on the Tiermaker. So we'll move on to the next game from there. Now, next game up, we've got Dallas at Cincinnati. Wow, Dallas Cowboys. It's one thing when, we all talk about how everybody is always, riding the jockstrap of the Cowboys. They're a completely overhyped team. They're a team that gets far more media recognition than they deserve. And, we watched and witnessed them get fairly demolished in their game against the Ravens yesterday. This Cowboys team is just they're just not a good team. They are not a good team. And again, we always say how much talent this roster has on it. That's always the talking point. This is a roster of talent. This is the most talented man-for-man roster in the NFL. And I just don't think that that's true anymore. And for years, that was the case. That was the case. The Cowboys have been a franchise over the last decade that has had the most talented players. That I would think if you combined or if you thought about that in a grander scale of things, that would be a true statement to make. In the last decade, they probably are the most man-for-man talented roster in the NFL. But if was a fifth, we'd all be drunk, because it doesn't matter at this level of football. Talent can only get you in the door. There has to be a level of chemistry, a level of cohesion, a level of buy-in by the not only the players but also the coaches in order to build your team into a legitimate contender. The Cowboys have not done that in over a decade. They have not been a legitimate contender in over a decade. And to add insult to injury, they are now getting bumped out of primetime football game slots. The Sunday night game that they were supposed to be involved in this coming Sunday, they have been bumped out of that spot by the NFL. That is a huge, huge tell as to the sentiment that the Cowboys now have within the greater NFL community. This is just not a team that deserves to have primetime games in the manner that they're always giving them, because they're not a primetime team. And I feel going into Cincinnati, this will probably be the most competitive game that the Cowboys have in this last half of the season, going against the Bengals. If I had to pick a team, you still pick the Cowboys against the Bengals, just because the Bengals don't have Joe Burrow, in my opinion. But it's not going to be a pretty game. It's going to be probably one of the ugliest games of the year. And that'll just have to be that. We know that the Bengals are a team that doesn't really have any pieces that are going to draw any advantages for them. So they stay in the basement dweller category as basement dwellers, because they are. And the Cowboys are going to stay and just trying to keep my job, because really, I think that there is a slight or better than unlikely scenario that Mike McCarthy might be a one and done head coach in Dallas. I mean, this is a level of embarrassment that the Cowboys have been facing. Let's look at, you look at their record, you look at their standings. They're 3-9. They're last in the NFC East. Their statistics, statistically, they're not, yes, Dak Prescott was having a great year, but you look at Andy Dalton. He's thrown 7 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, been sacked 12 times. This is a team that's given up a large amount of sacks. Amari Cooper he'll likely get over 1,000 yards for the season, but I mean, what is that really saying? Ezekiel Elliott, it appears that they spent way too much money on him as a running back. So you have a whole bloated roster of players that really don't warrant the amount of money that's been spent on them. And it's just not a team that looks like it has any of the makings of a team that you can build on. This is a team right now, honestly, that, for lack of a better word, is ready to be blown up. It's ready to be blown up. This is a team that has 1 win. I mean, and these games aren't even close. They've only had 2 close losses. I mean, if you want to call that close, they lost to the Steelers by 5. They lost to the Seahawks by 7, and the Rams by 3. But, let's be real here. They should have lost against the Falcons. They should have lost against the Giants. This could very easily be just a 1-win team. I mean, there's even an argument that could be made that the Vikings should have been able to beat them. This is worst case scenario for Jerry Jones' Dallas Cowboys. These guys ain't shit. So looking at it from that perspective, if they can't beat the Bengals, then they go down to basement dwellers. And the crazy thing is, if they can't beat the Bengals, they go down to basement dwellers. But the Bengals, they don't move up. The Bengals stay basement dwellers. So I'm going to keep these teams where they are. I think we know that for most of these teams in the bottom half of this Tiermaker, they're not moving from where they are because their identity as a team is already out there for us all to see. Their ability or inability to be a competitive franchise is already there. Things aren't going to just all of a sudden change now. So Cowboys stay where they are. Bengals stay where they are. I'm actually going to call this a draw. I'm not going to pick a winner of the game. I think it's just a draw. Either one wins, it's whatever. Nobody's really expecting that it's going to be, a game that's really worth even talking about after a certain amount of time. So we'll keep them where they are. Now, let's move on to the next game on the schedule. Kansas City at Miami. Now, this is a game that intrigues me because we're going to be taking a look at a couple of couple of players who, by all stretches of the imagination, are going to one of them is the face of the NFL, but the other one, Tua Tagovailoa, is the new kid on the block. He is the future face of the NFL in a lot of people's eyes out in South Beach. But this matchup to me, this is a big matchup. I mean, it's not a divisional game, but it is a big matchup. It's going to have playoff implications. Miami's trying to keep pace with Buffalo. Kansas City's in the driver's seat in their division, but, they're still wanting to keep the polish there for the team. I think this is going to be a hard game for the Chiefs. I don't think that they blow out Miami by any stretch of the imagination. I think Miami is going to play solid defense. It's going to boil down to, are they able to score and keep themselves within striking distance of the Chiefs. Now, as far as the tiers go, I feel like this is a team in Miami that definitely does look to move up, and I do move them up. They're playing well right now. This is a team that has an 8-4 record. Like this is a team that has quality wins. They beat the Jets. I'm sorry, not the Jets. The Jets are not a quality win. They beat the Rams. They beat the Cardinals. They have quality wins under their belt. They've been competitive in their losses. They barely lost to the Bills. They had a close game with the Seahawks. You know, it was a letdown to lose to the Broncos, but they had a solid game, or they were within striking distance of the Broncos when they lost to them. This is a team that knows its identity. They know who they are, and they play their game that way. And I think that they have a lot of their identity, I think, is thanks to Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think that Fitzmagic actually helped solidify the attitude and the approach that the Miami Dolphins have latched onto since they have switched to Tua as their starting quarterback, and they're trying to continue that. And, you know, yeah, we all think that it was kind of shitty how Fitzmagic got done, but he did actually leave a mark on this team with his play, with his attitude, with his professionalism, and he's been a mentor along with Brian Flores, their head coach. They have, you know, guided this team into being a contender in a year where many people didn't think that they would even, you know, they would be anywhere close to 8 wins, having an 8-4 record, 1 game out of the lead in their division in the AFC East. And, you know, it's anybody's guess, you know, who's going to be the division champ in that division, because Buffalo is not impervious. Buffalo is a team that has seen its own struggles thus far throughout the season. But Kansas City, as we all know, is Kansas City. This is a team that is probably one of the most well-equipped, explosive offensive attacks since The Greatest Show on Turf. And for those of you who are too young to know what The Greatest Show on Turf was, man, just go check them boys out, because that was the Super Bowl champion era St. Louis Rams. They were St. Louis Rams back then. This was a team that, you know, honestly was so prolific from an offensive standpoint that I don't think that, you know, we haven't seen, at least since then, an offense that can be as immediate in its ability to score in the same way that you're seeing kind of now with Kansas City. Kansas City is showing glimpses of having that same kind of attacking prowess. And that's going to be something that's going to be a tall order for the Miami defense to handle. I'm going to call Miami for the upset on this one. I know that's probably not going to be a popular opinion, but I am going to call Miami gets the win against Kansas City at home on Sunday. And I know that my boy Drunk 3PO will be happy to hear my prediction in that regard. Big shout out to Drunk 3PO in the chat. He's part of the Geeks and Gamers crew that I also do work with on their channel. Yeah, looking at this situation, Kansas City obviously got to see them first. I don't think that's going to change throughout the rest of the season. And Miami moves up from 1 win away to good for a cameo. I think that's fair. I think that's accurate. So we'll see how that game plays out. I'm going with Miami in this game as the upset special of the week. But you know, we'll see. We'll see. Moving on to the next one. Oh man, these are two teams that are kind of at this point in the season taking on two different paths, leading to two different destinations. And the funny thing is that if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago if the better team was Arizona, moving on a path with the arrow pointed up, I would have said no doubt. And New York, definitely their arrow was pointing down. But 2 weeks ago was 2 weeks ago. Right now, what we're seeing is that the Arizona Cardinals are struggling a little bit. And New York, well, New York is starting to find a little bit of themselves. And that comes without Daniel Jones at the helm. Let's take a look at both these teams. Arizona, obviously, 6-6. This was a team that's dropped 3 in a row, four out of their last 5. And one of those losses coming to the Dolphins. But it has been, I mean, it's just been a downward spiral for these Arizona Cardinals in the last 3 weeks. And honestly, guys, it reminds me of the 2010 season in Jacksonville, season where at this point, I believe we were 7-5 or 7-4. And it looked like we were first in the division in the AFC South, and it looked like and it felt like we were about to take that next step. We were about to win the division, and to make a long story short, we didn't even end up making the playoffs that year. We were 7-4, and we didn't make the playoffs. That's how quickly fortunes can change in the NFL, because this is a league where, there is this much difference between the teams at the top and the teams at the bottom. And if you can't keep consistent with what you're doing, then things can fall apart rather fast. And we had some things that happened to us, and it just really sent us into a spiral. So the Cardinals are sitting at 6-6. Not looking like the team that we thought would be kind of challenging Seattle as the dominant team in the NFC West. And here they are taking on a Giants team that, as of late, looking at their schedule, has rolled off 4 wins in a row. 4 wins in a row. Now, let's be real. The only quality win I put in there is the Seahawks win. They beat the Seahawks, which I think that shocked the entire, NFL world. Like, nobody expected the Giants of all teams to beat the Seahawks, but they got it done. That gives them 4 wins in a row, and that just speaks to having momentum. When you have momentum, when you're starting to build on consistencies, you start to see these types of things happen. Seahawks lose in Seattle to the Giants. So looking at these two teams, Giants and Cardinals, thinking about that as kind of a starting point as to who's going to win this game. In New York, I think that, if I'm being honest, I think New York is the favorite to me. I would pick New York to win this game. They're on a 4-game win streak. The Cardinals are on a 3-game losing streak. Things are very different in those locker rooms right now when you compare them in regards to how the players are feeling, in regards to how the coaches are feeling, how they're game planning. You're looking at 2 completely different scenarios. The Giants are trying to keep doing what they've been doing, and the Cardinals are looking for answers to problems that they've been unable to solve in the last 3 weeks. But I think in this one here, we would be remiss if we didn't give the Giants some credit for the kind of turnaround that they've built up in the last month. So I'm going to move these Giants up, but where to? Because they're number 1 in their division. They're the top team in their division. These Giants at 5-7. At 5-7, they're the top team. This is if the playoffs started today, this will be the division champ, and they would be in the playoffs. Let's let that soak in for a hot second. But this is a team that is in the thick of it, and I think that if we move them up, we got to move them up. Being that they're in the top of their division, I have to move them up into 1 win away. 1 win away. I know. That's a big jump. That's a big jump. You've got to with a 5-game winning streak. Yeah, Yeah, you jump into 1 win away. They're should they make the playoffs? Obviously, should they, get another win, actually, I think if they get another win, you move them up even further to good for a cameo, because now they're giving themselves some distance in the division. So I'm going to move these Giants up. Now, our Cardinals, obviously, they're on the opposite trajectory. I am now pulling these guys down to a party crasher. And I'm pulling them down to party crasher because they're losing a lot of pace in their division. The Rams are at the top, and the Seahawks are sitting in second. With 3 losses in a row, 4 out of your last 5 you've lost. They're going to need something drastic to make a change in December, because December is a December to remember, and a lot of coaches are judged on how they perform in December when it comes time to win games, to put yourself in the best position to be in the postseason. I'm going to go with New York as the winner in this game over the Cardinals. The Cardinals drop down to party crasher. Giants go up to 1 win away. Big jump for them. We'll see how the games play out, but that is my prediction on that. Now, moving into the next game. Minnesota at Tampa Bay. Whew. This one's going to be a doozy. Minnesota's bounced back up into 6-6. They've won actually 5 out of their last 6. And they're, obviously 3 games behind Green Bay in the division. Not necessarily a playoff. Not necessarily looking at this to be a team that's going to be in the playoffs. But, they've got to go into Tampa Bay, take on the Buccaneers. Buccaneers, I believe, just came off a bye week. So, did they? I think they did just come off a bye week. And they're going to look to try and finish this thing strong. Right now, they're sitting at second in the division. Doesn't look like they're going to catch up to New Orleans. They've already, taken the sweep from the Saints have already swept them in dominant fashion in both games, really. Against quality opponents, they just can't seem to get over that hump. Not sure why. I think that they've got all the tools there on offense. I think they've got a better than expected defense. That they just haven't been able to keep everything together. And quite honestly, Tom Brady has been a part of their problem just as much as he's been an answer for them at the quarterback position. Looking at these guys on the Tiermaker, they had the bye week, so it's going to be hard to really move them out of 1 win away. But these guys having to play against Minnesota, this could be the game that gives them a little boost. So I'm going to go with Tampa for the win. Minnesota, I think it's going to be a competitive game, but I think that Minnesota is kind of reached that point. Let's take a look at their record here. They've kind of reached that point. They've got a nice little run going here. They've won 5 out of their last 6, but it's kind of too little, too late for them. They should have had that. They should have started the season that way, and they would be in a much better position here today. But if I had to say where would I move either one of these, I just don't see them moving. I think they're both in the spot they should be. But I'm going to go with Tampa beating Minnesota. Minnesota is going to be looking to – Minnesota doesn't want to win too much right now because they could get some – they're trying to get a good draft position. They're not getting into the playoffs. I think that's pretty much clear. And obviously they're playing to win. But, I think if you're the front office in Minnesota, you're thinking, hey, we could definitely use – a couple of more draft picks or a better draft position. We found a good receiver what's his name? Justin Jefferson having a heck of a season, 1,000 yards receiving. Dalvin Cook, 1,200 yards rushing. Him and Derrick Henry are battling for the rushing title. And Kirk Cousins has come on a little bit. He's come on a little bit as of late. Been doing some good stuff. But they want to probably build on top of these guys as their core offensive players. Definitely probably going to look to fill in some spots on the O-line, fill in some spots on defense. Defensive end position obviously is one they're trying to get filled up. They had Yannick Ngakoue there at one point, but they traded him to Baltimore. And I think they want to kind of tread carefully. Don't win too many games because you can get some good draft stock if you kind of let this thing flow out. But both teams stay where they are. I'm picking Tampa in this one, and we'll see how that plays out after their game. Now, next up, we got Denver at Carolina. These are two teams that honestly, it's been a mixed bag for Carolina. I would say they've had to deal with a lot of injuries. Christian McCaffrey hasn't really been available to them much this year, but the Broncos are, the Broncos are still trying to figure out what their situation is going to be at quarterback. But looking at these two teams, looking at what Denver has been doing record-wise, it's just a lot of losing, a lot of inconsistencies. 4-8, sitting second to last in the division, only ahead of the Chargers. Excuse me. It's been a little bit of a rough patch for these Broncos. And then here you go. Here's some news right here. AJ Bouier suspended 6 games over PEDs. That's a former Jaguar there. They got traded in the offseason from Jacksonville to Denver for some picks. I think that the Broncos just continue to build. This season's pretty much a wash. Not much they can do in regards to improving their position much. And Carolina kind of in the same boat. 4-8. They had a nice little 3-win streak. They got a quality win against the Cardinals there. But it's really just not been it's not been what I think, what's his name? Jeff Rule. I can't remember what his name is. Their head coach. It's not been what they thought their first year with him at the helm would bring, especially having a dynamic player like Christian McCaffrey in the backfield, and having Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. Teddy Bridgewater's actually been having a pretty decent season. DJ Moore, 924 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns, trying to get over that 1,000-yard mark. But this is a team that is just just in the early phases of trying to retool and repiece that team together into a contender. I'm going to say that both these teams will stay in the party crasher zone. They can sneak a win in here and there if it's needed, but we're not expecting much. I'm going to go with Carolina in this game, but we'll see how it plays out when the game is played. So next up, Tennessee at Jacksonville. My God. My Jaguars. Damn shame. Team that just can't seem to figure it the fuck out or just doesn't want to. They're tanking for Trevor. They're part of the tank division. That is a contest that is reserved for only the most useless of franchise management members. And what can you say about the Jaguars? I expect them to lose this game. Tennessee's going to go in there and beat the shit out of them. And that will be that. Now, as for these Titans, they just got done getting their asses handed to them by the Cleveland Browns. I think that this moves them down to the good for a cameo And I think that's a little bit generous. This is a team that has the worst third down defense in the NFL. This is a team that gave up 41 points at home against the Browns. And even with all of the negativity that they had to deal with in the last week with their game against Cleveland, they're still a much better, much more well-coached team than the Jaguars. I give them the win in this game. I think that's an easy one to see. One of the easier, if not the easiest, on this week's schedule. Now, next up from there, we've got Indianapolis at Las Vegas. This one's an interesting matchup. These Colts just snuck out of Houston with the win. They're 8-4, second place in the division, tied with Tennessee for the lead. And, you know, this is going to be a bit of a clash of two styles. I think that with the Colts, you have a little bit of a mix of that retro West Coast 1980s offense that they're trying to run. You know, it's a variation of what Peyton Manning used to do when he was running in the West Coast with the Colts. But, you know, you got Phillip Rivers back there, and hey, as long as you got Phillip Rivers back there, you've always got a chance that he's going to throw a pick six. So the Colts are going to be heading in to play this game, and, you know, Las Vegas is a team itself that's had some quality wins. They've had some quality wins. They've had some good looks. They're 7-5, and you know, it's anybody's game, you know, for them. Their problem is they're in a division with Kansas City, so 7-5 is just not going to cut it. I think that this is probably a closer game than many people think. I think this one probably comes down to the last series of the game. I also think that the Colts, for what they've done in their last few weeks, does deserve to be moved up into the good for a cameo position, and the Raiders will stay there themselves as well. But I'm going to go with the Raiders in this one, just because, simple fact, traveling from the East Coast to the West Coast, it's difficult. And even, yes, they're playing in Nevada, but that's still pretty much traveling to the West Coast. So it's hard to play there, especially for teams coming from the East and the AFC South in particular, as the AFC South just has not really had a good record against these West Coast teams. So I'm going to go with the Raiders on that in that regard. I'm going to pick them for the win in this game against the Colts. Let's see here. Whoa. Next up, we got the Jets at Seattle. I think we all know what to expect coming out of the Jets after the debacle that they had last week with Greg Jones getting fired after that belligerent play call to run a zero blitz on the last play of the game against the Raiders, gifting them a free win with that decision, and also gifting himself a pink slip out the back door of the facilities because of his awful coaching call. Now, outside of that drama, I think we all know that these Jets are literally just here. They're not really participating. They're just a part of this 2020 season. Haven't won a game yet. That's a pretty hard thing to do. Well, maybe not if you're Greg Williams. But we look at the Seahawks here, and man, they got to come down. But where do they go down to? Ooh. Ooh, excuse me. No, I think this is a tough decision for me. This is a tough decision. Where do I move these Seahawks? Where do you guys think these Seahawks deserve to be? I guess is the question I'm asking. Because losing to the Giants was not expected. But I still believe that if you play the Giants 10 times with the Seahawks, you would win at least 8 of them. I think the Seahawks come down into this good for a cameo range now, and that is crazy. Yeah, I think good for a cameo is a good spot for them. Their defense is atrocious. That secondary is just having problems. Their front line, they don't get a rush. They don't cover. I mean, they're not going to make it far. They're certainly not going to make it deep in the playoffs if their defense can't play better than they have. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks for the win, obviously. But they have lost some good standing that they had with that loss to the Giants. And hate to say it for old Russ, but sometimes it's better if you ain't cooking, my friend. Sometimes it's just better if you ain't cooking. Let's move on to the next one. We've got a divisional matchup, Green Bay at Detroit. Detroit. 5-7 record. They came off a win. They're coming off a win to the Bears. They're 2-2 in their last 4 games. They got blanked by Carolina. When they lose, they tend to lose. They tend to lose by around 10 points, and it's really a tough position for the players in Detroit because you don't have a head coach, you don't have a general manager. And it's pretty much a certainty that whoever comes in as the new head coach and new general manager is going to wipe the slate. So it's even more important now for players who aren't considered core players to the team to put their best film out there because there's going to be scouts who are going to be watching it. There's going to be other teams that are going to be interested. So you want to have as good a game as possible. You want to keep these games as close as possible to give yourself, as a player, the best chance to continue on and get signed should the scenario occur where you don't end up staying with Detroit. Now, Green Bay, on the other hand, I think these guys are still we should have a shot. I think that, even with a few games that they've not really performed up to snuff, this is still a team that we can look at and know in confidence that they are in full control of their division and that they are a contender into the postseason. Their 3 losses were, one of those 3 losses was a blowout to the Bucs. That was early in the season. And since then, they've had a close one against the Vikings, who are a division opponent, and the Colts, who, they were in Indianapolis. That's not the easiest place in the world to play, but, this is an offense that is that had a little bit of a lull, but got back into a groove. And if you look, they put up plenty of points. Every week they put up plenty of points. This has got to be probably the highest scoring offense, I would say, statistically in the league. I would guess 43, 42, 37, 30, 35, 34, 24, 41, 30. They put a lot of points up. So, obviously I'm going to go with Green Bay in this game. I'm going to keep both teams where they are in the Tiermaker, and we will move on to the next game on the schedule. Next up, New Orleans at Philadelphia. This is another game that I feel like you don't need to say too much. I actually believe, just based on how these Saints have been playing, I really do think that, look at this. These guys have run off, they've run off, 9 in a row? 9 in a row. Wow. I think that's safe to say we can go ahead and move these guys up. I think it's safe to say that. We can go ahead and move these guys up. I don't think that's I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with that right now. 10-2. They've got plenty of distance in the division. NFC South is theirs. The prophecy of Brady turns to be a fallacy rather than a prophecy. And Tampa Bay will continue to settle for second fiddle in the NFC South. This game is, Eagles. I think we all know where the Eagles stand right now. They got Jalen Hurts coming in as a starting quarterback. Don't know that I see that really changing anything for these guys. It's just too much of a clusterfuck of a season for them. They stay where they are, just trying to keep their jobs, and we move on to the next matchup. Now, as far as this next matchup is concerned, two teams that are struggling. One team's a young team that's trying to build something for itself. The other is an old team that is holding on to their last breaths of comfortable life. Falcons at Los Angeles, playing against the Chargers. Justin Herbert, a guy who I've gushed over pretty consistently throughout this season. Really do feel like this guy is going to be a superstar going up against Matt Ryan and the Falcons. Now, the Falcons, it is what it is at this point. I think we know who they are. We know where they're going. We know what's in their future. They're going to have a new head coach and a new GM. So you know what that means. That means the slate is getting wiped. That means that there will be a lot of players who we won't be seeing return. And some of these Hall of Fame level players on their team, namely Julio Jones and potentially Matt Ryan, I would expect that there's going to be some value for them on the market for trades, for draft picks, for whatever head coach and general manager come in to replace Quinn and Dimitroff. But I think as far as this game goes, I think they both stay where they are. I don't think that the Chargers, even though they have a worse record, I think that this is a team that has more upside and a bigger ability to actually, pull off an upset win. I think that the Falcons are the Falcons. We know the things that have plagued them in the past. This is a team that has been severely injured by that loss in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. 28-3 is a phrase that many people in the Atlanta area and all through Georgia, if you say 28-3, you will get an audible gasp from anyone who lives in the state of Georgia or is a Falcons fan. Just not something that they've been able to recover from as a franchise since that game. And the effects won't, you can't wash away the sin of that loss until you have a completely new infrastructure in place. But I'm going to go with the Chargers in this game, but both teams will stay where they are. All right, next game up, we got Washington. We got the Washington redacted name against the San Francisco 49ers. This one's an interesting one. I think when you look at what's going on in Washington, they started the season off so ugly, but they've won 3 in a row, looking to continue with the momentum after shocking the world and beating the Pittsburgh Steelers, bringing that undefeated season to an end for the Steelers. I think that gives this franchise an emotional boost. I think it gives the prospects for the future for Washington a boost because, nobody saw that coming. Nobody would have predicted it. And the fact that it happened and it happened the way it did, I think that they have now they've kind of made that statement that this is going to be a team that's going to continue to grow. Now, obviously, biggest position they got to find some answers to, quarterback. Yes, Alex Smith is starting right now. Yes, we all know what kind of player what kind of respect he has because of his situation. But also, at least for right now, this ain't the same Alex Smith that he was when he got injured. That Alex Smith was, one of the better top mid-tier quarterbacks in the league at the time. Until he gets some more time under his belt, until he gets some more in way of repetitions in live scenarios to get back into a groove that he may have had back when he was a pre-injury Alex Smith. This should be a franchise that is looking to get a quarterback, and I know Ron Rivera is going to want a quarterback going into the 2021 season. So with this game, you got San Francisco kind of in a similar situation. A lot of injuries that they've had have kind of put a big damper on their season. Really, it's hard. When injuries come into play, it can make things really hard for a franchise to kind of right itself. And I think we've seen here, the Niners got the win against the Rams, which was a big win. You would have expected that to give them some momentum. You would have expected that to give them a little bit of a push forward in trying to finish out the season strong. But that didn't end up happening. They lose to the Bills. And now, when we look at these two teams on the Tiermaker, I've got to go with moving the Washington redacted team up into the party crasher category. I've got to do that. I think that's right. I think the 49ers, I think they stay in there as well. I think that you've got to give them the benefit of the doubt because of the injuries, but they've, it is what it is for the Niners. They're it's just not going to be a season that's worth too much. But again, they'll continue to push on into the end of the year. But Washington, I think, really is going to gain more from this season because of some of the names that have popped out there, like Chase Young, who have become staples on their defensive side. It's going to give them something to work with moving forward. I'm going to go with the Washington redacted team for the win in this. The Niners not quite there, but I think that game plays out in that way. Now, last up, well, not last up because we still have the Monday game, but the next up, Pittsburgh at Buffalo. This game is an interesting game. This game is a really interesting game because while, these teams this isn't a divisional game, there's plenty on the line, especially for Buffalo. 9-3, can't lose. This is a must win for them because you can't lose pace to Miami. And, you're still going to have to play Miami to end the season. So you want to get to that last game intact and still in a commanding position in the division so that you can devalue that game somewhat if you were able to clinch a certain seed before you get to that last game. Josh Allen, obviously this guy is having a career year. He's been playing well. He's become a leader that we knew that he probably could become since being in Buffalo. And, this is just another page in his book in trying to rebuild the culture. And, well, he has actually been successful in helping to rebuild the culture in Buffalo. This is a franchise that is now among the best in the NFL. So we should be expecting new stadiums and new uniforms anytime now. But Pittsburgh is going into Buffalo. I've played in Buffalo a number of times. Buffalo is not, I wouldn't say the Buffalo is a particularly difficult place to play. Their stadium is very open. It's very open, and the stands actually kind of push upward and outward. So, it's not like the bowl that you kind of expect. Like you go to Seattle, and Seattle Stadium actually goes up over the field. But in Buffalo, it's a mid, I hate to make this comparison, but playing in Buffalo is like playing in a college stadium. And I'm talking about, like a Purdue stadium that's not massive. Can get loud if they're getting rowdy, but it's not big enough to really affect operation from a team that's coming in there to play. And Pittsburgh, I wouldn't expect that these guys are gonna come into this game not ready to play. But it is very interesting to me to look at this Pittsburgh team and wonder how they're going to respond to this loss. Because, believe it or not, 3 out of their next 4 games are tough games. They've got the Bills, they've got the Colts, the Browns. Those are going to be hard games. And yes, Pittsburgh did clown on the Browns earlier in the season. But we also have to remember that was a Browns team that was missing their quarterback, that was missing their running back. They didn't have a full deck of cards to play with. And, obviously the Steelers took advantage of that. But I really do believe that it's going to be interesting to find out how they respond to that loss. I think that there have been a number of different issues that the Steelers have had throughout the course of the season that they just hadn't had to really address because they were winning. And that's how it is in football. When you win, ain't no problems. When you lose, there's a million problems. And I wonder if it's going to be an overreaction from the Steelers in their play calling, in their approach. I wonder if it's going to be a too big of a reaction to one loss. I think that the loss was just a legitimate loss, and they just, you just got to take, when you lose, you just have to take the loss, find the errors, and work on correcting those in a reasonable, manageable way. But at the end of the day, when I look at these two teams, I feel like something in my gut is telling me that this is the right way to look at this. And it might be controversial. But I see a lot of similarities between what is going on with the Steelers and what was going on with a team like Green Bay in the last couple years, with how they have these stellar regular season performances, but all of the issues that they were able to ignore without much problem in the regular season rear their head in the ugliest manifestation possible in the postseason, thus leading to an early exit. I think that Buffalo is one of the teams you have to see first. This is a team that has won and lost kind of in the perfect storm, in the rhythm, in the flow of the season. Buffalo, they had that huge disappointment against Arizona. But even with that Hail Mary loss, there was a ton of good stuff that they did in that game. ton of good stuff. And really, 9 times out of 10, with the way that they scored late in the game, that score holds up. There's no Hail Mary to bail out the Cardinals 9 times out of 10 playing against Buffalo in the same scenario, having it play out exactly the same way. Just not something that's gonna carry over. But Buffalo has been a resilient team. Buffalo has been a very resilient team through the course of this season. They have been a team that has had to figure out their way multiple times. They lost 2 in a row, Titans and Chiefs. People were starting to doubt them. They lost to the Cardinals in the Hail Mary game. People wondered if they could keep their composure and keep their focus moving forward after that loss with the Hail Mary. Since then, they've been on a tear. Beat the hell out the Chargers, beat the hell out the Niners. This is a team that is with these 3 losses they've had at really at about the right times with each of them. The Buffalo Bills have shown that they're a team that has resolve. They're a team that understands what their mission is, and they're a team that has lost any semblance of arrogance or any presumptions on how good they are, and they just go into each week playing that game with a full focus on operating in the way that they know that they can operate. They don't try to do too much, and they don't allow other teams to dictate the pace. And with the Steelers, it's been a little bit different for them. The Steelers have been riding on a pretty, by all accounts, a pretty soft schedule. Because, the teams that they were placed against, while great teams to start in the last couple years, they just haven't been the same teams. The Ravens aren't the same team. They beat them twice. The Jaguars, obviously, we've seen their downfall in the last 3 years. The Cowboys, another team that just not a team that really has a pedigree of being a winner in the last few years. They scraped out and got the win against the Titans. This Browns team is a very different team than they played back early in the season. Eagles aren't the team they were. Texans aren't the team they were. Broncos, not really doing anything. Giants, hadn't really done anything in a few years. So, all in all, for a schedule that actually should have been a lot tougher, if you just go off your regular, assumptions about NFL football, they have actually been gifted with a pretty easy, quote unquote, easy schedule this year, and they lost to the Washington redacted team. So, that's that goes to show that there's a possibility that this could have all been built on a house of cards. We'll find out this weekend, that's for sure. I'm going with Buffalo in this game. They're going to hand the Steelers their second loss in a row, and that will be I feel like that's a statement for Pittsburgh in the AFC as a whole, that they are now, along with Kansas City, the premier powers in that conference. But let's take a look here. We got a super chat coming from Johnny D. And Johnny D says, for $7.77, I love seeing those sevens, man, because that was my jersey number, 77. Says, I agree with you. I agree with the pro on the PANY move. Good show. Thank you very much, man. I do appreciate that. I just try to give y'all my perspective as a football player, just understanding how attitudes and behaviors within football franchises can change once you introduce a loss to a team. And for the Steelers, it's going to be huge. It's going to be huge in finding out what kind of true franchise they're going to be this year in the postseason based on this game against Buffalo. Because, there's a good chance, there is a good chance that these two teams, could potentially see each other, in the AFC title game if somebody's able to dethrone that other team coming out of the AFC. But I appreciate that super chat. Let's get into the last game here on Monday night, December 14th. We've got Baltimore going into Cleveland. Obviously, I think that needs to be done for the Browns. The Browns do move up in this Tiermaker because this is a team that, for everything that we're seeing right now, has shown that they are ready to take that. They are taking that step and becoming a true competitor in the talk for dominance in their conference. They are now part of that discussion. Now, personally, I give them props, but I don't believe that shit until they're in the playoffs with a playoff win. Then, and only then, for me, will I believe that the Browns have changed as a franchise. We'll see. But Baltimore, on the other hand, wow. Baltimore, even with the win against Dallas, that doesn't move the needle for me. This is a team that's lost itself. This is a team that has really lost itself. And a lot of why they've lost themselves is because they've kind of lost, Lamar Jackson has kind of lost his way as the quarterback. I think that they've leaned so hard into this RPO game, into this read option game with Lamar Jackson that, like I said, and you guys have heard me say this a number of times, it takes an NFL defense one full offseason to make an adjustment to something that's not traditionally it's something that's not a traditional NFL modus operandi. And the read option, for as much as we see it, it's still not considered typical NFL play style. It's an alternate style of play that has its uses, but you cannot and you should not formulate your entire team's philosophy from a play calling standpoint around it. Because once a team or once defenses are able to dissect, analyze, and oppose it, there is a good chance that they're going to start shutting that shit down. And that's what teams have been doing to Baltimore. Baltimore has seen much more in way of resistance this season because now teams are able to respond to their read option, each and every week of the NFL season. It's been tough for them to really find something to turn to. But the solution has always been that you're going to have a passing game. Lamar Jackson is going to have to pass the ball. He's going to have to pass it accurately, consistently. That's going to happen. And he was much more accurate and consistent last year when the passing game was used to supplement the running game. Now in 2020, when an NFL defenses now got all the film they need to analyze, dissect, and counter that read option that they've been running, that RPO that they've been running, that they've been living and dying by in the last year. Now they're in a situation where they got to have answers quick, and I don't think that they're going to have them. I don't think that they're going to have them. I'm going with Cleveland winning this game. Cleveland will cement itself as a power in the conference with another win. and they've solidified their winning season, first one in a long time. And the Ravens, I fear, won't be even in the postseason this year. I fear they have fallen out of that postseason contention. So I'm going to actually keep both teams where they are. They aren't quite party crashers, but if they lose again, you know, based on their situation specifically, they might turn into party crashers. We'll see. We got another super chat here from the Greg for $5, and the Greg says the Patriots are the NFL's greatest franchise. Just wanted to hear that out of your mouth, Uche. Great show, by the way. The Greg always has colorful comments that, hey, as long as you're paying for those comments, you can have as many colorful ones as you want. Because that's the only time I'm going to pay attention to it, is when you're paying to say it. But great hearing from you, Greg. Everybody in the chat, really appreciate you guys for being in here. Just make sure you're smashing that like button and sharing this with your friends. Keep this thing propped up on that YouTube algorithm there. But with that, we now have our tier for week 14. There have been some shifts, as you can see. There have been some big shifts for anybody who's just kind of jumping in now in the stream. We've seen some pretty substantial shifts in positioning for a number of teams in the Tiermaker. But I think that, I think we're pretty accurate with how we're looking at these. So that will be that for the Tiermaker. I really do appreciate everybody for being on here today with the Lineman Life Tiermaker stream. Once again, I've been seeing amazing growth with the channel. It has really, really been awesome to see it all take place. And, I have you guys to thank for that, because you guys have spread the word. You guys have tuned in regularly. You guys have been a part of this. And, I give just as much credit to you guys in the audience. I've now become, I've now grown to know some of you guys in this online medium, and you guys are great people, and I really do appreciate all that you guys do by tuning into my channel, watching my videos. I'm gonna have some really good content coming up here soon. I'm gonna start. I've been promising this Bengals O-line breakdown. I've had a lot of things come up that have kind of distracted me from getting that finished. But I'm going to get back to work on that this week. I'm going to have a Bengals breakdown. And I'm thinking, and I'll leave a poll in the community section of the channel for you guys. But I'm going to kind of float this idea where I want to just do like a 2-play breakdown, 1 pass, 1 run play, 1 pass play for O-lines in the NFL. Something that I can do a little bit faster. Because if I'm being honest, when I do one of my O-line breakdown videos, you guys don't even know. That thing takes about 10 to 11 hours of work, I feel like, to get done, because I do use a telestration software to do a lot of the graphics you see on it. So that's very time intensive. I go and I get the coach's film, and I actually watch the entire game of the team that I'm going to be doing an O-line breakdown of, so that I can pick out plays from different portions of the game, starting the game, halftime, coming out of halftime, and then the fourth quarter, last drive, whatever it may be there. And that takes a lot. It takes a lot to get that done. I mean, I've had nights where I literally have worked through the entire night, like literally go to sleep at 8:30 in the morning because I've been breaking down film and putting the telestration graphics on it, and trying to make it as presentable and cohesive as I can for the audience. And then I drop the video and it gets like 200 views. So that's a hard thing. I want to be efficient without losing quality, and it's a hard thing to do and only get 200 views. So what I'm thinking to do now, just to make it a little bit easier on me, and I'm going to put a poll. I'm going to put a poll into the community side of my channel, asking you guys if you'd rather me do, a kind of a glorified game breakdown like I've been doing, where I have first half, second half, or if you want me to just pick 3 of the most important plays in a game and break down the offensive line play in those. So look out for that poll. That'll be coming soon, so that I can get that started with my next breakdown. And I'm also thinking of doing a Sunday stream where I just, while games are playing, I'm watching games and we're talking generally, about the games that are going on, but also just kind of a hangout session for me with the audience, where you guys can ask me questions via super chat, so that I can go into and talk about as we're watching games. Just kind of more of a laid back environment there, not so much in way of having, an actual like structured out stream. And even these streams, I don't necessarily structure them, but I have an idea and an outline that I write up about where I want to go with the stream. So that'll be another thing that definitely I would like to get some feedback from you guys on, and how you'd want to do and how that'd be cool to do. Now, lastly, and I think I mentioned this yesterday on my All Pro Football stream, is I want to start having, more interactions with you guys on my gaming streams. And one way that I wanted to do that was to have games, play games online with members of my audience who are members of the channel, who have hit the join button down below the video on YouTube, and are actually, part of the premium membership program for my channel. So I think that once I start to see more people become members and be in our member tier, I think that then I will start scheduling for like with my All Pro Football, I'll start scheduling to have guys come on a stream with me, play against me, however we do it, but we'll get a good hour or 2 of playing one-on-one with me on the games as part of my video game streams, and maybe even have guys come on to the Lineman Life podcast as a special guest for the Lineman Life podcast. But that's going to be something that I want to reserve for people who are members of the channel, who are in the membership program for the channel. So just an incentive there for you guys to think about joining up. I think I think that would be an awesome thing to do. I have, signed memorabilia, signed gloves. I have shoes, things like that I'll be looking to try and gift for people who are members of the channel. So you might want to consider that. If you want to become a member, make sure you click that join button down below. You can choose from one of the tiers in that member section to join from. Now, I will warn you, there's a difference between somebody who's paying, $5.99 or $10.99 or $19.99 a month, and what they're gonna get when it comes to me picking who I want to bring on, the podcast, or who I want to play a game with. There's gonna be a difference between somebody who's paying $1.99 a month and somebody who's paying $19.99 a month. So, if you're interested in being one of those people who can jump on and play a game with me, or jump on my podcast and talk football with me, consider that, because it's going to, somebody who's paying $19.99 a month is likely going to be far more, I'm probably going to look more in their direction for some of these bigger membership perks that I'm trying to set up for you guys. So think about that. And when you think about joining the channel, that's definitely something that will play into how things will play out in the future. But with all that being said, guys, I really appreciate you guys so much for being on here. I am about to jump off. Cyberpunk 2077 is about to release, and I am going to be streaming that live on my channel for you guys at around 7 p.m. Eastern. I mean, it's just going to be me starting the game up, playing through a little bit of the game. But I am 110% hyped for this game and waiting for it for a long time. So that's going to be my next move here coming up real soon in about an hour and 15 minutes. But again, appreciate everybody for being here on the stream. I will catch you guys on the next one. Make sure you are on the lookout for the community polls that I'm going to drop in regards to getting some feedback from you guys. But appreciate everybody. Make sure you're staying safe out there. And I will catch you all on the next one.